Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast.
Hi. How are you?
Welcome back for a recap.
Yeah.
Still the Place. Guys, we are getting so close to the end of the season. And yeah, it was sort of like the up and down of energy of the episodes. Like really fun stuff is starting to happen. And then we have this one that's a little bit more emotional, a little bit more down.
Yeah. It was good though. I thought everyone, especially Andrew, really hit the mark on this one.
Yeah, he had a lot to do.
He had the most to do for sure.
This episode is called End Game, and it was written by Frank South, directed by James Frawley. And I would like to start by pointing out at the beginning of the episode that the pool cleaner is not Matt.
Still, because you asked him?
It's still not Matt. No, I'm just noting, like I saw.
Did you just ask your husband in the other room if he's ever cleaned the pool off?
I can identify him.
I mean,
you can identify him.
Did you not notice the pool cleaner?
It looks like Doug.
I always think it looks like Doug.
You think it looks like Doug?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you please just ask him?
So
we'll hold.
Funny. Okay, Doug. So for the second episode in a row, you guys think it's Doug, and I'm convinced it's not. It's not.
I had a note. This time it is Doug, and it was the same guy that. It's just from the back of the head. And the camera moves in over him. But I thought, I don't know, it looked like Doug.
Did you ask him, Laura? I hear you have access to Doug.
That's hysterical.
Will you please just ask him?
You know,
he's right here. He's in the next room.
We make it such a mystery. He's literally right over there working out, probably.
Yeah, I do know where he usually hangs out. So I can confirm it is not Doug.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just think it's hysterical that you wrote the note that it's definitely Doug this time.
Yeah.
And I wrote a note that it's definitely still not Doug.
Well, you might know.
I don't know. Maybe you should just take my word for it.
Well, don't you remember Scotty, the props assistant? He used to do it all the time, and I really haven't seen him yet. Maybe he came like the regular pool guy later.
Right. I think he hasn't started being the pool guy. And maybe whoever this guy is, because we only see this guy's back.
Yeah.
This pool guy's back.
Yeah, no, the audience is going to be surprised to know that this episode is not actually about the pool guy.
Yeah.
No. It really feels like we're laying pipe. It really feels like we're getting
It's not remotely like that. I was so surprised to find that we both had notes on it and we were on such different pages when it's like nearly irrelevant. But
so in order to manage expectations for the audience, bring your mood back down to somber land.
Episode is not about the pool or the pool guy.
All right. What is it about?
It is mainly about, I have to say, this episode is mainly about Billy finding out that his father has suddenly passed away from a heart attack. So it's kind of an emotional episode throughout. And it's definitely the main story is his journey through that. And at the start of the episode, he's back in his lonely, empty apartment, because Allison is gone in Seattle, and it is just him in his ratty desk chair, since he's also broken up with a man.
Yeah, buddy, the chair.
Is he in his ugly chair? And sadly, he learns early on that his father has had a massive heart attack and has died. And Billy struggles with his emotions through the whole episode. He sort of buries him deep. But he also is considering taking over his dad's furniture store, which he thinks would have made his dad proud. And so the gang at Melrose Place is trying to support Billy while he's really unemotional and they're concerned. And Amanda tries to console him too by suggesting that she spend the night with him.
She shows up out of the shadows one night in the courtyard. It was very bizarre.
Super slinky out of the shadows saying, hey,
so
why
rude.
Don't I stay? Yeah.
Spend the night.
But admirably, he even turns her down, which I was pleased.
Yeah, even when she kissed him really slowly.
Very provocatively.
Come on.
For sure. And he manages to say, no, I think I need to just be alone tonight. So he does seem to be interested in talking to Allison after he hears a voicemail from her on his answering machine. And then he's disappointed to only reach Keith when he tries to return Allison's call.
Keith. Amanda.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll wait till later. Go ahead.
I've got so much to say about it.
So Keith is like a trigger word. It's like, wait.
He's not even in the episode and he's pissing me off.
Again, yeah.
I don't think William Moses would want to be a guest, even if we invited him. He'd be like, yeah, no, thank you, ladies.
It's not his fault. We're really just annoyed with Keith. Yeah. We love Billy Moses, lovely. Keith, the character, not so much. But then Allison shows up at the cemetery right after the funeral. She's delivered in a cab just as the service is finishing.
And how much did you guys think, we'll get to it, but how much do you guys think finally?
Well, yeah. I just felt like it was perfect. But of course, when she lands there, she's there just in the moment to witness Amanda doing another like sort of sidling up to Billy.
She lands at LAX, by the way, not that rinky-dink Valley Airport.
I'm sure
LAX, the famous sort of Jetsons building.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually shot at LAX this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so when she sees Amanda sort of, snuggling up to Billy, she's a little weirded out. And Amanda also manages to sneak in a comment to Allison about how tired Billy was the night before. But then
yes,
Billy,
both emotionally and physically.
Yes, just in case you didn't get my drift. And then Billy assures Allison that he and Amanda are indeed broken up, and he invites Allison to come spend the night at her old apartment.
Oh.
And so that night, Allison and Billy talk, and they're sitting in the empty living room with only the chair. And
even Allison doesn't want to sit on it. She's like, "You have
the chair. No.
I'll sit here on the floor."
Yeah, yeah. But this is where sort of the emotional cracks begin to show for Billy, and he eventually ends up breaking down with Allison after he lets off some steam at the pier. They're playing some games where he just throws the heck out of some baseballs and tries to break a bunch of stuff. But he ultimately ends up crying on Allison's shoulder, and he reveals to her his wish that he had told his father that he loved him. And Allison tells Billy that his father knew that he loved him because there's an invisible line connecting people who love each other.
I think all this double entendre, and she's talking about her
says,
father.
Just say it. Just say it.
You're going, of course it's coming back.
Yes.
So then when Billy feels like more at peace with things the next day, he even has a random philosophical conversation about heaven the next day with Joe. We'll talk about that too. And then before Allison flies back to Seattle, she and Billy attend a brunch with his sister and his mom, where Billy's mom tells Billy that she has sold the furniture store because Billy's father would have preferred and he would have wanted Billy to be a writer. She then asks Allison to read a letter out loud that Billy's father had written to him. And the letter says all the things that Billy had needed to hear, including that his father loves him and is so proud of Billy and his talent for writing. So then at the airport, again, Billy is taking Allison there to fly back to Seattle. They're reluctant to say goodbye. They're both saying how much they've missed each other. And Allison decides at the last minute to tell Billy that she doesn't want to go back. She doesn't like it there. She misses Billy and everything else here. And Billy is ecstatic. And he tells her that she should absolutely stay then. And she agrees. And then they spin around in the airport terminal like in an ice skating duo in a total embrace, as only people do when they're, totally in love, but really only just friends.
Wonderful angle, high camera angle, so you could see down him spinning, hopefully not knocking anybody.
Yeah,
knocking anybody over.
It was a very cute and romantic way to end that storyline in the episode. But meanwhile, there's a B story where Michael and Kimberly are heating up with her complaining about her apartment's bad management and faulty pipe maintenance. And it sort of becomes a very thinly disguised metaphor for everything that she needs and thinks.
Zero disguise, Laura. Zero disguise.
I know. I was going to say, does anyone do a pointed line better than Marcia?
Oh my God.
Wow. I mean, so obvious.
So
right to his eyeballs.
So fun.
Everything she says, it's like, if only you weren't married to someone else, is basically, straight
subtle.
Out.
It's not subtle.
Yeah. Not subtle at all.
So their scenes are super loaded with innuendo and tension. And Michael ends up at her place fixing her literal pipes. And you can see that he's clearly torn. He's, revealing his desire to give in to this mutual attraction with her. But thankfully he does walk away and he does go home to Jane. We'll talk about that. And we also follow Doofus. Yeah, thank God.
Remember?
We also follow Rhonda and Terrence and the Too Close for Comfort decorator. Rhonda gives Terrence an ultimatum saying either Carrie goes or she does. And Terrence says, all right, Rhonda, you go ahead and fire her yourself. Though only after a few very annoying Terrence-y comments about loving seeing Rhonda so jealous.
Yeah.
Yes, but she shut him right down. This is not funny.
Yeah. So, and then
Yep.
Matt also uses this moment and the loss of Billy's father to reconnect with his own father. And they have a really nice scene toward the end of the episode, not cleaning the pool, but where they agree to really get to know each other, Matt and his father, and they agree to spend time together more often. It's very sweet. And the episode is sort of got an overall theme of love and expressing your true feelings.
Because you never know what
episode.
could happen, kind of thing.
Yep.
I think the death of the heart attack really took everyone. You got to like
Yeah,
express
and
it.
it was a really deep episode of Melrose Place in terms of everyone's reaction to. It's the first time they kind of had this is the theme and everyone's reaction to this event,
Yeah.
right? I thought that the way people are trying to show up for Billy was so sweet. Him not being able to deal with it was so interesting. And then watching each person have their
Yeah.
own experience of what it feels like. We were young, right? Probably, I
Yeah.
certainly hadn't lost a parent yet. Had you guys lost a parent yet
Yeah,
at that point? You had.
that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it was, Billy being shut down and unable to experience his emotions and like,
Yeah. I
just
got it. I'm fine. The
numb.
whole beginning
Yeah.
of it. In fact, nothing, he didn't let, he thought he had to step into his dad's footsteps, which is probably a common, thinking. Your head is like, oh, I guess I'm the man now or something. He's like, I'm going to take over the store. But it was all above, in the head, no emotion until you know who comes to town and he can be himself. And it was such a beautiful scene that with Billy and Allison, don't you think, when they were at the pier, like you said, and he just telling the truth. And just an aside for that pier, that I don't know if you guys have ever been there outside of shooting this scene to that arcade. There's a
Yeah. There's
wonderful
carnival
roller
games and
coaster
yeah.
and carnival games, and merry-go-round is very childlike and very innocent and soft. And I just thought it was a great place to do it. And
Yeah.
he said my dad used to take me here. And so he's reminiscing to when he was young.
Yeah,
And
we did, but we're going way to the end. Can we go a little bit to the beginning? Because otherwise we're going to
Well,
be done. And that was the episode. Yay. So good to see you guys. I want to talk about the first scene for a second
right.
because it
Me
opens
too.
with Billy in bed. And then you see Allison, and I'm in this
Yes.
really weird white satin negligee and this bra. So I've told you guys, like I was very chesty and I was very self-conscious about it. So I was just thinking, this poor costumer, they must have said in a white negligee. Now, can you imagine any worse words if you're self-conscious about your body and your breasts anyway?
And
So
we're
they
going to
had
pull
this
it from our
bra
Dynasty
that
closet, by the way.
totally,
You're going
it
to
was
love
a
it.
bra
It's
like from the 50s. It
Dynasty.
looked like it was
Yeah.
made of iron and this weird negligee. And I'm doing this sort of film noir monologue and he's having a dream about me being there. But I was just like, oh, I can't even imagine what the
Do you
costumers
remember
had to
shooting
go
it?
through. I don't, but I can promise you I
You
was
probably
just
blacked it
I
out.
Well,
probably blacked out, but it was so uncomfortable. I just
but
looked uncomfortable.
let's also
Yeah.
point out this is another one of Billy's dream sequences, right? So he
Yes.
dreamed Allison up in this white negligee, and she's there, like, speaking like she's in a 1920s movie.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that there's this recurring theme of him having these dreams. But this one, even though like Allison's appeared to him in this like lovely look, for him, it's still a nightmare because the reality
Because of
is
the bra, it's a
she's
nightmare because of the bra.
saying
It's a,
no, because she's saying, you blew it, Billy.
yeah, you blew it.
You
Literally.
blew
You
it.
blew
I'm
it.
still in Seattle. I'm going to wake up with Keith and you're
You
screwed and
saw-
you're still alone.
Yeah.
And he wakes up to realize that, yep, that was a
Yeah.
bad dream because I am, still alone. She's still gone. I'm still alone in this apartment with just my janky.
But it's funny you say that,
desk
Laura,
chair.
that it's his vision. And it is
Yeah.
this satiny sort of look.
Yeah.
It's like she belongs on like a 50-year-old woman or something with all this lace and floral stuff or something, but it's white satin. And then you go to his home and his sister's childhood home with this floral and
Oh my
chintz
God.
and flower on the
So flowery
wallpaper.
water.
And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be Billy's sexy image. I mean,
Yeah, I
kind
don't
of fit in.
I don't know. I have some thoughts about Billy's like the home setting and the like dynamic with his mom and his sister who comes in for the funeral and all that. The funny thing is that you looked great in the little nightie, Courtney. And I'm sorry, it brought up like feelings of, ooh, and scary and vulnerable, but you looked great.
I was just remembering how it felt. And I was like, God, that's a bra.
Yeah.
Like I was just so self-conscious and I just wanted to hide them. And then moving past the bra, but I so saw that scene. They're talking about, do we go right to Thomas and Kimberly talking about Kimberly needing a place to stay? Yeah, that's before we find out about his dad.
So exactly. So like those things are overlapping while Billy's, waking up bummed that he's alone in his apartment. Michael is having a conversation with Kimberly at work and she's revealing that she's kind of, hating her apartment because the maintenance sucks and management sucks. And Michael is suggesting that she maybe consider becoming Billy's roommate. That there's an apartment that is vacant in Michael's building. And hey, we should have this dinner and you should meet Billy because maybe you
Yeah.
could become his roommate. So they set up a dinner where it's kind of awkward. It's going to be Jane,
Yeah, like a
and
weird double
Michael.
date. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
weird.
and Billy and Kimberly, and it's such an interesting foursome. But and I just totally can't imagine Kimberly becoming Billy's roommate. But
Can't
she gives it a
imagine. She's
try,
like a
right?
woman,
She
with
does.
this kid.
It,
And I have to say, it reminded me. Remember, I told you that I live with Darren in this dumpy little apartment in college, right off of UCLA. It was a 2-bedroom with 1 bathroom, this dinky little bathroom, and of course, I wasn't like this, doctor to be evil, gorgeous woman like Kimberly was. But I was a college kid, like okay. But we lived in there, and I had a roommate in my room. If you can imagine that, as tiny as these rooms are, I had a roommate, 2
Yeah.
single beds, and then he had a roommate, and it just kind of reminded me like of that because it just was so old fashioned and remind me how young we are and how long ago the show was, and that kind of like your first time out, just the shape that the building's in and the
Yeah.
apartment,
Well, and
is kind of.
she goes over after the dinner. She goes like I feel like she gamely sort of goes along with it. Yeah, I'll go check out the
Yeah.
apartment. And she's walking around and she's being really polite about it, like looking into the space. But I'm having the same trouble
She's
envisioning
not
her
going.
sharing a bathroom with Billy. Like that
Yeah.
just doesn't
Forget
that
it.
doesn't match up or whatever. And that's of course when Billy
Maybe
then gets
maybe Kimberly wanted to do this because it meant he'd spend more time with Michael, right? This dinner, but then she would have to see the wife because she keeps bringing up the wife. Well, you have
Well,
to
I
yeah,
think
she's
so
like,
too. That was my thought.
like your
that
wife
she-
is such a pain in my ass,
Yeah,
like
is
you have
she
to
gonna
you
go
have
to
to go
this
home to your
dinner?
wife. Is she
Yeah,
gonna go?
and at dinner,
Yeah,
Michael's
she's going.
going on and on, like Michael's going on and on. I was
They
like, oh,
actually
so he
live
says
together.
we should do dinner, and then Kimberly goes, "Is your wife coming too?"
Mhm.
And then at dinner, he goes, he says, "Oh my God, where did I put it?" But he says, "Kimberly is professional, smart, easy to get along with, easy on the eyes." And
Yeah.
Josie's like, "What are you like?"
Simmer down.
and then
Simmer
Josie
down.
rolls hers
Down a
really
notch.
big.
Yeah,
She's like, they're not getting married, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and then in that same thing, she's talking about complaining about the plumbing, and he goes, "I have tools, I could take care of it." And she says, "I'm sure you
I
can."
bet you could. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was so not thinly disguised
She
at all. It was
just takes a
right
bite out
there.
of those lines. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah, totally.
fun.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, keeps playing like, oh, well, yep, mm-hmm. Yep,
Well,
gotta go.
you can tell he's completely like, ooh, like
Yeah.
leaning into it. And
Like he's kind of not quite doing it, but you know very much that he's interested. Like there's that's a hard line. It's like it's kind of a light, foggy line with spaces in it. You can
Yeah,
fit right
it's-
through the spaces.
he's
Well,
definitely being.
because he's coming on like a
yeah.
bulldozer. I mean, that Kimberly is like leaving. No, he's literally there fixing the pipes. It wasn't just a sexy innuendo that she said. Like, then he's there fixing her sink, She's,
And she
Well, I thought
said,
it was-
and then she goes, "I have some meat in the fridge."
Yeah,
It's like,
we
oh
could
my
eat
God.
it.
eat it.
Speaking of meat, geez, what's
with some
happening?
wine.
It was so
I have a bottle of
delicious.
wine, but I guess you have to go home to your wife.
I'm going to try that. Maybe that's why I'm not dating very much. I have some meat. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's the
where's
line I'm
my-
missing.
I could cook it and then we could.
I could have swear I set these settings so we could have a little thumbs down
He's
here.
desperately trying to thumbs up
Yes,
it.
because this is where it belongs. It belongs here. Thumbs
make
down.
a big rain cloud like a storm happen. There you go. You did it.
No, Michael, don't do it.
But I thought it was really funny. Back to that dinner when Billy sort of he breaks the tension by going, "Hey, do you have any furniture?"
Yes.
And she goes, "I have an apartment full." And he
Yeah.
says, "Do you want to elope?" And it's
Yeah.
like he's charming, he's funny. He breaks the tension that's obviously so awkward between the whole Jane and Kimberly and Michael thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
But so then when Billy learns about the heart attack and they're
Right.
at the apartment with Kimberly checking out the bathroom really politely, like pretending like this might actually work out, which I can tell clearly it's not going to work out. even then, when Billy runs off to the hospital and he meets his mom there, his mom is sort of like, this is where she's sort of like manic, and she's going, well, we were dancing, and then, all of a sudden he wasn't feeling well, and she's sort of manic and whatever. And the conversation is like, they're assuming the doctor's going to come out and tell us what the next steps are.
Right.
And
Well,
then,
I know you listened to a lot of the scene. All I could look at were her shoulder pads.
Me
and
too.
her-
Cheeks,
yeah.
Right,
by
they
the
were-
way. Flowery or something. It
They
was like
were.
that.
Do you remember that time though? Shoulder pads are big. I remember Home Shopping Network had just started, and I remember buying from Home Shopping Network. It was
You
like a
did?
box of shoulder pads. Yes,
whole box.
I was an
Bought
early
a
adapter.
box of-
Yeah,
That's
box of shoulder
hilarious.
pads, and you would tuck them in, and you'd like put them under your bra. Remember, and there were rounded ones and square ones, because I
Yes.
think we thought, and my mother did too, because I remember they were always like falling out because they were spongy. They were
Yeah, they're foam.
foam. They would
They're
fall out, and all of a
amazing.
sudden you'd be walking, and the shoulder pad would fall
well,
out.
do you think that she also had one in her hairdo because her hair was really
Big
big,
hair,
and maybe
too.
they just
It
used
was
an
big
extra
hair,
shoulder
too,
pad
yeah.
to like pump it up a little bit?
It kind of looked like she
Yes.
wandered over from Dynasty. She was very, but you know,
Totally.
yeah.
And I also
Dynasty.
felt like her character was sort of in a Tennessee Williams play the whole time. Like it
Yes.
was very
Yes.
dramatic and stuff. And it was like, whoa, this is jarring and a little bit, everything was a little bit surreal and kind of weird. Like when Billy went home, I just felt like his home life and his relationships and stuff and his mom's
And
dynamic.
the sister, it was very
and the
Lear. It
sister
was
was-
very
yeah.
Shakespearean.
there was a
Tonally,
very,
it felt different. It did. It felt different tonally. Like they
Yeah.
came in with this intensity.
I was
It
confused.
was different. That's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
I was confused. But so they learn in the hospital that his dad is dead, and Billy goes home. He's just sort of numb, and that's when he encounters all of his like Melrose.
The friends come over.
Yeah,
friends
first
and
he
stuff,
sees
trying to be
Matt, who
supportive.
says, "Is your
Matt.
dad? If you need anything, if your dad needs help at the hospital," and he goes, "He's dead." It was just like felt like a thud.
Yeah.
Yeah, which made it easier for them to avoid talking about Matt's loud shirt and his really long mullet.
Yeah. That
Because-
colorful shirt. Just heading over
sh-
to see the kids.
At least we could ignore.
West Hollywood.
Because when Matt first steps out of his apartment, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, it was bright. It was cool.
It was a lot, a big print.
But he was just kind of like, nope, I got everything settled. I'm good, And then I think it was Joe and Jake, Michael and Jane came over to say they're sorry. And then Joe and Jake come over, and he was kind of out of it. I think he was still stunned. I think he
Yeah.
was.
And
the
I felt like
character
too, I thought
playing
Daphne
still,
were
like,
so
done.
good in that scene, because I could see that Joe knew. Like he was saying, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." And I could really see on your face that you knew, which is why the later scene that we'll get to, but played so well when you bring the coffee machine over, because you had this shared experience with him, which is rare at that age, right? Most people
Yeah,
that age
Joe had
haven't
lost
a
her mother.
parent.
Yeah, she
So
lost her
I
mother.
could see, and I was like, "Oh, she knows." I actually wrote that down. She knows he's not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
And-
like that scene that we had that we'll talk about in a minute. But
And Jane is
Joe and
also
Billy.
commenting. She's like, I don't think he's expressing his emotions. Like he's not, and Michael's sort of like, yeah, he'll get to that. It's just going to
Yeah,
take
he's
some
fine.
time.
I got to go back to the hospital. Do you
Yeah.
really? Is that where you're going? Cut to him
Yeah.
under the sink.
Cleaning
Oh,
the pipes.
The li-
Cleaning
yeah.
the pipes. Yep.
The lies are already
That
starting.
was a lie, and it's
Yes.
starting.
Yes.
He's like, he's in that kind of, I don't know. He's in that kind of like buffoonish, kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? And then
Yeah,
she's
no,
like,
I can't possibly.
coming on. And
I'm
then
married. Let me come clean your
Now
pipes.
he's lying to his wife.
Yes.
Like blatantly. I was expected that he was going to go back to the hospital and then he gets to see Kimberly, but then he's like there under her sink.
Right. And he
Suddenly.
uses the excuse like, oh, I've been at this funeral all day. I haven't been to the hospital. I need to go see patients. He just blatantly lies. And we
Yeah.
cut straight to underneath.
And I think
Kimberly's
Jane was
kitchen
a little, I think I picked up from Josie like a little, did you guys see this? Like, I don't know about this because she's now seen her quite a few times, saw Kimberly, sees what she's like, sees that, he was overboard on talking up her, assets and how great she was at that dinner. So now he's like, I have to go back to the hospital. I saw a little bit of suspicion or something.
Well, she's
Ah.
definitely disappointed that he's not just staying home and being with her.
But I mean, I think it's
after the funeral.
related. I
Yeah.
think it's story forward,
More
like
specific.
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
she might know
What's
about
happening?
all of Kimberly's meat.
I think so.
I know
I
how
think
much that
they're-
appeals to
and that they're
men.
gonna eat it.
I think she's going to go out to Ralph's and get a steak and some wine and Jane and put it in her refrigerator.
Kimberly has all that meat.
I have to say, Jane was a little bit dressed like Charlie Chaplin for the funeral, which
Yes,
also
I thought that
confused
was
me.
interesting too.
Yeah.
There was a cute little velvet bucket hat, but there was a giant overcoat.
Yeah, and giant
coat
pants.
over her cute. I'm sure it was a cute pinstripe suit on underneath, but the giant coat with it plus the hat. She was just like,
this is 1993.
She did not need all that fabric, and it was a little bit Charlie Chaplin wardrobe.
It was 1993. Let's look it up.
She was a fashion
I
designer, so I think she always got to be super fashion forward.
I guess, she was trying something new, and she got it, and we didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think the palazzo pants, the wide pants, all that fabric that, was big back then. I know that Joe did after a while. Right now she's still in her kind of black jeans phase, but after a while we got into all these printed sort of flowy pants and flowy shirts too. But
I don't mind palazzo pants. What I don't like is parachute pants, I have to say. Remember those?
Well, that's 90s too, isn't it?
Yeah, parachute.
MC Hammer. I always
Bizarre.
think of
Laura's
MC
taking a
Hammer
stand on parachute pants. Thank
I'm
God
gonna
somebody
draw the
finally
line.
did, Laura. Thank God
I'm gonna
somebody finally had the
differentiate.
courage.
Yeah, I'm just going to
God.
say it.
If you are more concerned about what your fellow racists think about you, you've already lost.
Hi, I'm George M. Johnson, a best-selling author with the second most banned book in America. Now more than ever, we need to use our voices to fight back. And that's what we are doing on the Fighting Words podcast. Listen to my new episode with the iconic Gabrielle Union. We cleared the air about a recent controversy with actor Matthew Lawrence, who claimed she reported him on set for refusing to run lines with her.
This is like 2 husbands ago. Like, what are we even talking about?
And I asked her what it's like raising a trans daughter during Trump's second term.
When you offer up the trans community as a sacrificial lamb, if you open the door to say, well, take these people, now the door is open and they coming for everybody.
Listen to Fighting Words on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Cheekies, and I'm back with a brand new season of your favorite podcast, Cheekies and Chill. I'll be sharing even more personal stories with you guys. And I know a lot of people are gonna attack me. Why are you gonna go visit your dad? Your mom wouldn't be okay with it. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I know my mother. And I know my mom had a very forgiving heart. That is my story on plastic surgery. This is my truth. I think the last time I cried like that was when I lost my mom. Like that, like yelling. I was like, no. I was like, oh, and I thought, what did I do wrong? And as always, you'll get my exclusive take on topics like love, personal growth, health, family ties, and more. And don't forget, I'll also be dishing out my best advice to you on episodes of Dear Cheekies.
So my fiance and I have been together for 10 years. In the first 2 years of being together, I find out he is cheating on me, not only with women, but also with men. What should I do?
Okay, where do I start? That's not love. He doesn't love you enough, because if he loved you, he'd be faithful. It's going to be an exciting year, and I hope that you can join me. Listen to Cheekies and Chill Season 4 as part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Pod of Rebellion, our new Star Wars Rebels rewatch podcast. I'm Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, I'm Tia Sircar.
I'm Taylor Gray.
And I'm John Lee Brody.
But you may also know us as Harrison Dula, Spectre 2.
Sabine Wren, Spectre 5.
And Ezra Bridger, Spectre 6 from Star Wars Rebels.
Wait, I wasn't on Star Wars Rebels. Am I in the right place?
Absolutely.
Each week, we're going to rewatch and discuss an episode from the series.
And share some fun behind-the-scenes stories.
Sometimes we'll be visited by special guests like Steve Bloom voices Zabarelio Spectre 4, or Dante Bosco voices Jaikel, and many others.
Sometimes we'll even have a lively debate.
And we'll have plenty of other fun surprises and trivia too.
Oh, and me? Well, I'm the lucky Ghost Crew stowaway who gets to help moderate and guide the discussion each week. Kind of like how Kanan guided Ezra in the ways of the Force. You see what I did there?
Nicely done, John.
Thanks, Tia.
So, hang on, because it's going to be a fun ride.
Cue the music.
Listen to Pod of Rebellion on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are your ears bored?
Yeah. Are you looking for a new podcast that will make you laugh, learn, and say ¿qué?
Yeah. Then tune in to Locatora Radio Season 10 today.
Okay. I'm Diosa.
I'm Mala.
The host of Locatora Radio, a radiophonic novela.
Which is just a very extra way of saying a podcast. We're launching this season with a mini-series, Totally Nostalgic. A 4-part series about the Latinos who shaped pop culture in the early 2000s.
It's Lala checking in with all things Y2K, 2000s. My favorite memory, honestly, was us having our own media platforms like Mundos and MTV3. You could turn on the TV, you see Thalia, you see J-Lo, Nina Sky, Evie Queen, all the girlies doing their things, all of the beauty reflected right back at us. It was everything.
Tune in to Locatora Radio Season 10.
Now that's what I call a podcast. Listen to Locatora Radio Season 10 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sonoro and iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network present The Setup, a new romantic comedy podcast starring Harvey Guillen and Christian Navarro. The Setup follows a lonely museum curator searching for love. But when the perfect man walks into his life...
Well, I guess I'm saying I like you. You like me?
He actually is too good to be true.
This is a con. I'm conning you. To get the Delano painting. We could do this together.
To pull off this heist, they'll have to get close and jump into the deep end together.
That's a huge leap, Fernando, don't you think? After you, Chulito.
But love is the biggest risk they'll ever take.
Fernando's never going to love you as much as he loves this job.
Chulito, that painting is ours.
Listen to The Setup as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We skipped over that after Billy sees Matt, Amanda comes out of the shadows and she says to him, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah, she
she's
appears
so
a little
sorry.
stalkery, creepy.
Yeah, but incredibly beautiful stalker.
Yep,
So that
stunning.
really softens it. And then she says, would you like me to stay over? I'd like to. So this is not the show of subtle women. Like this episode, it's not women being subtle.
And I
Have
really
you read the
thought,
title of the show? It's
I
not
really
subtle
thought
women.
Andrew played it like so, he was so firm and strong. Like,
Yes.
I'm not, no,
Yeah.
he wasn't even like a little bit tempted. And I just thought, good for you, Billy.
Yeah, and that's when he goes home and gets a message from Allison and calls, and Keith answers. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
We all had the same reaction. It's like,
When everybody
Keith!
misses. Yeah. When people just miss. But all of this, like before all of this has happened, we haven't quite touched yet on the weirdness of the sister, because Billy has to go pick up his sister at the airport who's flying in for the funeral, right? And it's with her that he has this conversation outside the airport as they're getting into his car about, he thinks, that he might take over the furniture store, because she's the one who says, I always told Dad he should retire earlier, and that it was too much and he should retire, and I think he was just waiting for you to take on the store. And then he goes, well, actually I'm thinking of doing that. And she yells at him. She's like, stop talking business. Like she just sort of it's like the weird moment. I was like, what is this relationship? Did you guys get confused?
I didn't feel the relation. I don't think is this the only time we saw him having a sister?
I was wondering that if we'd established he had a sister before. I don't remember
think so.
I don't know.
And
but
I feel like, it wasn't written with a familiarity of these two characters, and this guest star comes in and it's supposed to be like very dramatic. She reads it and she finds out her dad just died and stuff. So there's that.
Yeah. No, I think like it was written for her to do that. It wasn't like,
She keeps calling him little brother, and he's like, stop calling me that. It was just, I agree with you, Laura. It's just awkward. I didn't understand the relationship. And then when I saw her bedroom, I really didn't understand her, because it's like either it's like a queen or a king size, or two twins pushed together, brass framed with all this flowers everywhere.
floral bedding, floral wallpaper, but different florals, just like
different
everywhere. Yeah.
But it's the 90s. You never know.
And yeah.
It could have been
and
spot on.
the dad's old suits still hanging in the closet. You know, the mom's like, I'm sorry, he was using this for his work closet. And Billy just sort of recognizes the suits in there, and he's really thinking about this furniture store and really becoming the furniture guy.
It's always interesting with situations like this because this is a show about all the kids together, right? All of us in this building, each of us have families. So whenever they're hired and we have scenes with them, it's the first and maybe the last time we're going to see these people. And the writers also don't know. There's no familiarity. There's no like thing to anchor it. So sometimes it works and sometimes you're just kind of like they're on another planet, you know?
Well, right, because it's sudden backstory. Like
Yeah.
you just suddenly have to tell your backstory in this scene when we're meeting you. We have to learn all about this relationship all at once. And, you know, based on these circumstances, but also like, let me give you the backstory. And it's just like, it was jarring. I just felt like it was jarring and it was just a little odd. Tonally, it was just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. She came in really hot, but I think she only had a couple scenes.
Yeah.
With which
it was
to
written
have
for
this
her that
whole
way.
experience. It was written that way.
Yeah.
And so it felt like I like what you said about it feeling like a play. Like that storyline felt like a really separate thing. And then we go back to our familiar Melrose Place. And it's true, when you introduce someone's family, all of a sudden you've got this whole new cast of characters. And our Melrose Place is our family now. So we're trying to introduce these people, and she has to be there to help him get to the breakdown at the end, right?
Well, and just and his thought that being the furniture man was the thing that would make his father proud, and for some reason that makes the sister
But
mad.
there's a payoff. There's a really nice payoff with the script.
And
so
it does
we'll
all
get
end
there.
up in the right place.
Really
at the end,
nice.
but-
Yeah, there's a sweet scene at the funeral. I always love it when we're all together, even at a funeral. And Doug looks very handsome in his turtleneck. Did you notice?
Well, maybe he tucked some of his mullet into the back of the turtleneck. No, of course, he looked very handsome.
He did. He looked very handsome.
Didn't have any dialogue at the funeral.
Joe had very big funeral hair.
Big funeral hair.
Did you notice? You got all done up for the funeral.
Joe has had really bouncy hair lately.
You know who I thought? Amanda. I mean, she was right out of Dynasty hair. With a falcon crest. It was pulled back. It was a French twist.
It was a kind of a high updo. Yeah, very
down like this. It was so not Amanda. All of us had. It's kind of like, wow, we're going to a funeral. We're just going to change it all up. Charlie Chaplin on Jane. Joe's like all curly and bouncy. You know, Amanda's up like, you know, Linda. I don't know. It just seemed very. Why do people do that for funerals? You
I don't
what
know.
mean?
Well, I think
Go out
like
of their norm.
The priest or whoever was saying the words over the grave, you know, he was I think he got the memo too, because he was a little bit Tennessee Williams too. I thought the whole thing was very ashes to ashes.
Yeah, well, then we're
you know,
looking at it, and I
very-
am, of course, yelling at the screen because that's why I want to watch it together one day so we can all yell at the screen.
Because we
I was
all have
like,
such a different
Allison,
observation.
where are you? I was so annoyed. And then all of a sudden you see after, and this was a little, I don't know if you guys caught this little mistake, but she shows up after the funeral, and then later she tells Billy's mom it was a lovely service. And I'm going to go, you lie, you weren't there. But after the service, the cab pulls up, and I think Billy was talking to Amanda at the time, right? Aren't they having a little conversation? And then he looks over and sees Allison.
Yeah. That's where she's kind of, you know, nuzzling up to him again, saying, you know, if you need anything.
She's
Yes,
got
you
balls,
can
man. I
call.
mean, he already rejected her. I know he didn't invite her to the funeral, but and Amanda shows up anyway, even though she was rejected by Billy after their breakup last episode. And she shows up anyway. And then she's going to nuzzle up next to him in front of Allison. Like, it's endless. Like, I don't know. I'm speechless. It's very Amanda. It's very Amanda. Like, she has no emotion, no shame, no humility, no insecurity about just popping up at a funeral and saying, hey, I'm going to make your girlfriend jealous.
Yeah.
Well, and also like at the end when, you know, he's got his mom, she leaves in the limo and Amanda goes her own way and it's just Allison and Billy. Billy wants to like lament the flowers and stuff at the ceremony, which he's like angry with the sister for setting up all the wrong flowers, roses, which his father was allergic to and would have hated. And he's sort of lamenting that. And I felt like, to your point, Court, Allison had to sort of like talk him down off that, like, hey, it's okay, you know? And so like when she later says it was a lovely service, I feel like almost, even though, yeah, she was lying, 'cause she didn't actually see it. I feel like it was Allison also just trying to go, everybody, everything's okay. It was a lovely service. You know, like it was like,
I don't remember her being asked about the service. I remember the mom saying, do you think I went overboard on the flowers? And she
Right.
said, no, it was lovely.
right.
So that
She was like
talking
trying to
about the
say,
flowers.
yes, it
And
was
the
all
last
lovely.
shot of the whole scene is all of these flowers. Like there
Yeah.
were a ton of flowers. They were right. They went overboard on the flowers. You know,
Yeah.
and they're cleaning them up and taking them away.
But Allison's the one who's being diplomatic there, going,
yeah,
"Everything's fine,
totally.
guys.
The
Everything is
glue.
fine. It was
Mhm.
lovely." You know, like
Yeah.
don't, you
Good
know.
old Allison's back.
Yeah.
Stick
Total
around.
diplomacy.
That was such a sweet scene of them by the car. And I really felt in that moment, I thought, oh, I really get why people are rooting for these crazy kids. Right.
Oh,
And you could
yeah.
see that Andrew and I were two people who really care about each other. And I thought, oh, that was really a sweet scene to see them come back together. And then when they walk back into the apartment and they're out of their funeral clothes and they're just in their casual clothes on the floor, I was like, oh, they're home. Didn't it feel like,
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
oh, they're home?
I
'Cause
really
he-
saw at some point in this, I forget, it was one of your close-ups or one of the scenes, probably halfway through or the last half of it, where I really saw this is the heart. You were the pulsing heart of the show right now, the stories, which it goes on, but it really was like all this other stuff sort of happens, but you're like, we're back to come on, guys, you know, we see your love, we know you care, but I don't know why you can't say it.
Yeah.
But it was really important, and I could see why the audience just loves this couple, you know, made
Yeah,
sense.
it was really cute.
And in that scene in the apartment is where, you know, he tries to ask her about Seattle and she's like, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. We're going to do this, you know, next week and it's going to be great. It's fine." She's just brief and short, but like you can even start to see her cracks showing, like, that wasn't a very like authentic answer. Like, I don't think I got the whole story in that answer. And she's like, "Well, how, you know, how are you doing?" and whatever. And when she questions him about like the furniture store plan that he has, that's when he loses it. And he's like, "What do you even care? You left." And that's where he starts to show his emotions about her leaving. And he's really, this is what it's about. It's like, I need you. I miss you. I love you. You know, you left. But he, you know, that she's the only one he's safe to reveal his emotions to. And so that's why when he's like, I got to get out of here. And let's, you know, he goes to take out his anger at the carnival or whatever. It just ends up
Yeah. Well, what he says, because I wrote it down because I love that scene too. He says, "Don't come down here and act like you give a damn." And then Allison says, "You don't really think you can scare me away that easily, do you?"
Yeah.
And it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Because most of their game has been him sort of chasing her and her sort of being, so it's nice to see it reversed where he's sort of acting it and she's saying, "I'm here and I'm here with you. I'm not going anywhere." It's good to see the shift in that.
At this point, you know, which I've been wondering in other scenes as well, why haven't they? What's keeping them from being together? Honestly, as human beings,
Chuck
I
talked
get
about
I
that.
get the conceit of the script and yada, yada, yada. You know, and what did Chuck say? Because it's at one point it's too much. Like it just doesn't make sense. It makes no sense.
Well,
You
that's
love
what's
each
hard
other.
about these shows. And, you know, I just watched Bones and then I watched Castle. And the conceit is the same in both, right? Everyone knows that these two lead characters are in love. And they have to keep them apart for seasons.
You have to keep them apart. Yeah.
You
I know,
have to keep them apart.
Don't you
But
have
look,
to
this is a line
justify
that
it?
loved me in this scene where I said, "It seems so often so much goes unsaid, but so many times we hear it. Maybe you didn't say I love you, but he heard you anyway." I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
I mean, and she says there's an invisible string between two people, and this is, and he's talking. She's
Invisible
talking
line.
about his dad.
Yeah,
and you're
between
just like,
people who love each other.
literally, and he doesn't bring it up, and like there you wanted to kiss. So I get that this means the writers are being very successful at what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, because we're so frustrated.
But I just don't know why at this point.
Because we can see very clearly what they're
Because they're
saying.
not married at this point. I mean, especially after. Let's see what happens now that she's left Keith in Seattle.
Well, here's the thing, like we're not interested in each other at the same time, right? There's something going on that always keeps us a little bit
But
apart.
now we will
want to keep that tension because that's what keeps you coming back week after week.
We'll see what
right?
happens
You can't
next
release
week.
the tension.
We'll see what happens if they throw
Because
another,
we know by the end of this episode
that she decides to stay. Yeah.
Yeah, you see her going up the stairs and you're like, oh boy, there she goes again. And she just turns around and says, I hate it. I don't care about the At least she didn't say I didn't care about the environment, because he is an
Right.
environmentalist.
She didn't
She
go
said,
that
I don't
far.
care about the
I don't even
something or
care.
other. Oh, the Pacific Northwest or something. It was something that I was like, okay.
Do the Olympic Peninsula or something.
the Olympic,
something.
yeah.
She
something.
was like, time alone was Keith was not our friend. Like it did not, when it's just him,
It
she
proved
misses
to
her
me
job
that-
and her friends because it's just Keith, and this is not good. Keith
ain't
is
it.
just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
If you are more concerned about what your fellow racists think about you, you've already lost.
Hi, I'm George M. Johnson, a best-selling author with the second most banned book in America. Now more than ever, we need to use our voices to fight back. And that's what we are doing on the Fighting Words podcast. Listen to my new episode with the iconic Gabrielle Union. We cleared the air about a recent controversy with actor Matthew Lawrence, who claims she reported him on set for refusing to run lines with her.
This is like 2 husbands ago. Like, what are we even talking about?
And I asked her what it's like raising a trans daughter during Trump's second term.
When you offer up the trans community as a sacrificial lamb, if you open the door to say, well, take these people, now the door is open and they coming for everybody.
Listen to Fighting Words on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Pod of Rebellion, our new Star Wars Rebels rewatch podcast. I'm Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, I'm Tia Sircar.
I'm Taylor Gray.
And I'm John Lee Brody.
But you may also know us as Harrison Dula's Spectre 2.
Sabine Wren, Spectre 5.
And Ezra Bridger, Spectre 6 from Star Wars Rebels.
Wait, I wasn't on Star Wars Rebels. Am I in the right place?
Absolutely.
Each week, we're going to rewatch and discuss an episode from the series.
And share some fun behind-the-scenes stories.
Sometimes we'll be visited by special guests like Steve Bloom voices Zabarelio Spectre 4, or Dante Bosco voices Jai Kell, and many others.
Sometimes we'll even have a lively debate.
And we'll have plenty of other fun surprises and trivia too.
Oh, and me? Well, I'm the lucky Ghost Crew stowaway who gets to help moderate and guide the discussion each week. Kind of like how Kanan guided Ezra in the ways of the Force. You see what I did there?
Nicely done, John.
Thanks, Tia.
So, hang on, because it's going to be a fun ride.
Cue the music.
Listen to Pod of Rebellion on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On November 5th, 2018, at 6:33 a.m., a red Volkswagen Golf was found abandoned in a ditch out in Sleep Hole Valley. The driver's seat door was open. No traces of footsteps leaving the vehicle. No belongings were found, except for a cassette tape lodged in the player. On that tape were 10 vile,
No! Ah!
grotesque,
Oh my God!
horrific stories that to this day have been kept restricted from the public until now. You feeling this too? A horror anthology podcast. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sonoro and iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network present The Setup, a new romantic comedy podcast starring Harvey Guillen and Christian Navarro. The Setup follows a lonely museum curator searching for love. But when the perfect man walks into his life,
Well, I guess I'm saying I like you. You like me?
he actually is too good to be true.
This is a con. I'm conning you. To get the Delano painting. We could do this together.
To pull off this heist, they'll have to get close and jump into the deep end together.
That's a huge leap, Fernando, don't you think?
After you, Chulito.
But love is the biggest risk they'll ever take.
Fernando is never going to love you as much as he loves this job.
Chulito, that painting is ours.
Listen to The Setup as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Cheekies, and I'm back with a brand new season of your favorite podcast, Cheekies and Chill. I'll be sharing even more personal stories with you guys. And I know a lot of people are gonna attack me. Why are you gonna go visit your dad? Your mom wouldn't be okay with it. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I know my mother. And I know my mom had a very forgiving heart. That is my story on plastic surgery. This is my truth. I think the last time I cried like that was when I lost my mom. Like that, like yelling. I was like, no. I was like, oh, and I thought, what did I do wrong? And as always, you'll get my exclusive take on topics like love, personal growth, health, family ties, and more. And don't forget, I'll also be dishing out my best advice to you on episodes of Dear Cheekies.
So my fiance and I have been together for 10 years. In the first 2 years of being together, I find out he is cheating on me, not only with women, but also with men. What should I do?
Okay, where do I start? That's not love. He doesn't love you enough, because if he loved you, he'd be faithful. It's going to be an exciting year, and I hope that you can join me. Listen to Cheekies and Chill Season 4 as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Can we talk about the philosophical conversation between Billy
Yes,
and
please.
Joe about heaven? When Joe comes over to deliver a coffee pot, and it's sort of like a peace offering, and you see that like both of them are like, hey, let's get past this and let's be friends or whatever. It was a super sweet gesture and stuff. And he invites her in and they're setting up the coffee pot.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up, she's like, yeah, you can use me as a sounding board. And he's like, okay, sounding board. And then I think he's going to ask something like, and let me ask you a question. I think he's going to ask something about Allison. And instead of that, he's like, where do you think people go when they die? It's like, what? The question was so funny. Like I was expecting a completely
I thought it was going to be like, how was it for you when your mom died? Like I thought it was going to have something related to the deaths of both of their parents.
I was thinking very surfacey, very Melrosey, and I was expecting that. And instead I got like a deep, like, tangential philosophical thing.
I wonder if one of the
I thought
writers
it was right on. His father just died of a heart attack and her mother died. I thought,
I'm just telling you how shallow I was and what my expectation was.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
You can have that.
Yeah, no, I loved it, but I thought I was wondering if one of the writers had just lost a parent, because it felt like one of those where you're grappling with that. And I thought that might make a good Melrose Minute if we want to talk about that after. But when you're really grappling with that and where do people go when you lose someone who means a lot to you? And so they wanted to sort of work it out on the page, because it was not a normal Melrose scene at all. You guys played it beautifully. It was such a beautiful scene, but I thought these are ideas we don't normally grapple with. It's, is Michael going to have sex with Kimberly? That's kind of where we keep it usually.
Right.
I don't know. I think this show really has layers that I didn't know it had, because I kept thinking through this episode, which was very emotional and about something that everyone can relate to or will relate to one day, about the loss of a parent, that when I thought back to, before watching these, when I thought back to Melrose, I thought it was just who's going to sleep with who and when, and then they're going to betray. I thought it was just that level, but I'm seeing by watching the show again, it was multiple levels, and these writers were really talented at doing that. And this to me, yes, it was different than a typical, but I feel like it was, I think it's part of the glue and the depth that also had to be there to make Melrose the success that it was. It just had to be. Something had to be a little deeper, because we all can relate, to these questions. It's not just who slept with who, or it just becomes a farce.
Right.
So,
well, it did sort of just come like just as our episodes are ramping up and getting to be more, like just the backstabbing that had just started the episode before, not the backstabbing, but like I'm going to say what I think right to your face, and that stuff was starting to come out, and then to have it drop into this energy was just such a shift.
But also to have it be so authentic. Like sometimes Melrose has tried to take on deeper things, and you kind of roll your eyes. Like this was really thoughtful. I was listening, I was going, it's a very good point, Joe. Like I was right with it.
Summer camp. I think heaven is summer camp.
Yeah, there was a little something like the details of that. Summer camp is, how I envision it, and there's soda and a dock.
But before that, it was like an energy, you rejoin the energy.
And there's a lot of that in the show, that there was theme about regressing to a child. Billy talks about it with Allison. They go back to your childhood bedroom. Your dad's dead. You kind of like regress back to these, and so I felt like Joe was very childlike. Like I always, when I was a kid, I thought it was summer camp. I don't know. I just thought that innocent kind of.
And that was a really vulnerable thing to share. Like she was just really honest about, like, this is a kind of just the way I envision it, but she just shared it. It was such an intimate, vulnerable sharing between the two of them.
Yeah, I like seeing how it impacted the characters. I loved it that Matt took his dad out to lunch, and the scene sort of came out of nowhere, but it was really, I like Billy saying, "My dad died." His reaction is, "I need to live my dad's life," And Matt's reaction is, I don't want to miss this time. And he actually says to his dad, I want to hear about your life. How
Yeah.
is your work? Like he finally, as a grown man, there's that moment, right, where we see our parents as people. And we get to, it's not just them asking us how our day is. We go, and how are you? And actually ask who they are. Like, I really think at this point in my life with my mom, I'm so lucky. Like, we're really good friends. We had to re-meet as adults and have it be the two of us as friends. Because for so long, it was like, I need her to be my mom. Then I realized, oh, wait, she is my mom, obviously. But she's also a funny, smart, interesting woman in her own right.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I get to meet her in that way. And I loved that scene with Matt and his dad.
Yeah, I was really glad that scene was in there. And I think you're right. Like the relationship you have with your parents when you become an adult is so different than the one you have as a child. But of course, it's colored by that. And so, like, it's such a gratifying relationship when
Well,
you're
hopefully,
two
not
adults.
always.
Yeah, not always.
I
but
mean, for me, I had to really finally just let them off the hook. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to like let them be. They were young when they had a kid, and Jesus, Daphne, like you can't, you know, you just have to let them be human beings and with all their faults, and they try their best, and they're so great at these certain parts, you know, certain areas of being a parent, and now they're friends, and you know, they get older, and you're taking care of them in ways that you can. But I thought that was really great too, Courtney, that scene, and that kind of adds to what I was saying about this is like this kind of deeper level in this whole episode, you know, like with the lines with our characters. Because you did think, usually Matt's having a scene with his dad because there's something to be gained. You know, there's like a thing I need you to do. I need you to see who I am and accept me for being gay, or I need you to do the. It was like, no, I just want to know who you are. And that's the vulnerability we have when someone dies. Like, I just want to connect. So I just
well, yeah, because this letter that's read at the table with Allison there at this family brunch, and Billy's mom says she can't bear to, you know, read this letter herself. Could Allison read it out loud? She's like, you know, I'm sure
I must have asked for more lines that episode. Let her read the letter.
I'm sure
Just
that
let her
was.
read the letter.
But like, she's like, you know, it's like you're a member of the family anyway. And so she, you know, sort of shares this thing, but it's like the things unsaid, the things that didn't get to be said to your face. Here, you have this opportunity to hear them now. These are the words that your father wanted to say to you, and he put it in a letter, and you get to hear them now. Like, it was such important information for Billy to hear. It was the very thing he needed to hear, and it made it okay that you know, the furniture store was no longer something he was going to pursue. It was like, it was validating his desire to be a writer and all the things that he just absolutely needed to hear. But like that feeling of remorse, like, what if I don't say the things I need to say while I'm still alive? You know, that Matt took that and it's like, I'm going to make sure we connect.
Mm-hmm.
It was lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice closure on that.
Yeah, I love that letter too. I felt like I also thought it was really complicated and interesting. And they're saying, we don't, you know, the dad was saying, we don't communicate well in life. You're the writer, I'm not. But basically, I'm proud of you and I love you, which is all he ever wanted, right? And posthumously, he wants to work in the store to make his dad proud and find out his dad was already proud. Then he can let it go. And I think we would all find out, right? Like, that's the thing about conversations when you meet as peers. You get to just say, no, I'm proud of you as a person. Like, I love you as a person. If we're lucky enough to have parents and kids that are available for that relationship, it's so sweet. And you felt like when Matt's dad seemed so charmed, you know, and he goes, yeah, well, let's have lunch first. But you could tell that he's a very good actor. Their connection's very sweet.
I love that
You
scene.
could tell that he took it in the right way, and that you go, oh, this is the beginning of a really sweet friendship for these.
You could just see him at dinner that night talking to his wife, like, I had the loveliest lunch with our son, dear.
Yes.
He was so
because if you
thrilled
think it means it means something to you, the child, imagine what it means to the older person, the parent. You know, they're older, they're in their middle age, they're getting older. It means
this,
so
I know.
Yes. Yes.
This I know. So I guess next episode, we should imagine that this Michael and Kimberly thing is only, you know, going to keep escalating, right? I mean, it was so right in front. I can only guess that we're going to see so much more of it in the next episode.
And I'm thinking that Rhonda took care of Ray Don Chong's character, Carrie, because
I think that'll
does
happen off
give
camera.
her permission to fire him. She's like, you got to fire this woman who's trying to get get you. And he's like, I love when you're jealous. She's like, this isn't funny.
Ugh.
You got to fire her. And then he says, I'm gonna let you do that, baby. And she's like, okay, I will. And so, she went back, and I don't know if we see her again, but she took care of that. And I'm curious to see what happens with that, with Carrie gone. And I'm sure all the florals are going to leave too. Because remember, there was that scene with Carrie coming in and talking about there's so many flowers in this episode, like flowers everywhere.
And lavender floral. Yeah.
I mean, florals. I just had this vision of Terrence with all these flowers.
Which he claims to love, which is so annoying. Like,
oh my God.
Ugh, stop. All right. We're getting so invested in all of our characters. I love it.
Well, it's spring for us. We just had spring. So it's apropos that we had a springtime with flowers abound in an episode.
Exactly. It's absolutely perfect.
Well, we can probably expect a complete tonal departure for the next episode.
Probably.
And I can't wait. So
I can't wait either. So good to see you
27
guys.
Always great to see you. Always
27 is next. Isn't that crazy?
In one season. 27 episodes, and it's not even the end.
We're not even done.
So, all right. Even though that episode was called Endgame, this is not the end, people. There will be more.
And it may have been like, it'll be interesting to see. We should pay attention as we go forward, like how many of these were just in case it was the end. Like we should see. Like, and then
Courtney and her, I'm sure we were supposed to be canceled by now.
Right. She has a theory. Every episode's going to have something about the end in the title.
I'm sure this was the end. No, my dear, you have a few more coming.
Well, this one says it was Endgame, but this is not the end. We will be back for more Still the Place, including our next Melrose Minute. Yeah. And thanks as always for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and download.
Please subscribe.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye.